Yes, actually, and it only took 30 minutes to actually do all the little vignettes, little videos that people recorded along with the president. And then afterwards, people could go and play their particular college or department or whatever. Everything was in alphabetical order, so they knew exactly when the person's name was coming up. So I, as much as I like graduation, I'm thinking this isn't a bad way to do this.
On YouTube or the
Yeah, I gotta mute it on.
Okay,
So most of you don't know, but I had a serious health problem, and I survived only because I was in an emergency room, and Eileen was the doctor there, and
That's
she
the only reason.
personally saved my life.
Wow.
And she looks
I
a lot
personally called you
different
on the
without
cell
all the
phone. That's what I did.
PPE on.
You were already saved by the time you came in.
Well, so the thing that I'm still wondering now, I need to get an antibody test, because now
Yeah.
that they're talking about all of these blood clots and stuff, I wonder if this wasn't secondary to having the infection, despite the negative test I had in Brazil. So
Yeah, that's what I think too.
yeah, number of people have said, because I didn't have any symptoms of deep vein thrombosis before this hit.
Yeah, I think it's an autoimmune vasculitis that some people get.
Yeah. So we'll see. If I can talk to my doctor into getting an antibody test, we'll find out. All right. Do we have who are we missing? Maddie, I think, is the only one. And I haven't heard from her.
I think I'm good.
Oh, and
Remind me, what's the meeting?
I didn't hear from, our other East Side resident. Yeah, let me see if I can get members here. Jeez. Membership. Here we go.
I know who you're talking about, but I can't think of his name.
Yeah, and I'm blank.
Former student of mine, about 30 years ago. So.
Yeah, he's John Zanfordino's son-in-law now.
It's Andy McDermott.
Andy, there you go. Thank you. I'm completely blank. Take off 2 months and I forget everything. All right. Well, let's get.
Steve, we're live on YouTube, so go ahead.
Okay. This is the May meeting of the Bicycle Safety Commission for the city of Bowling Green. And I'd like everybody to just go through and introduce themselves, so we know who's present. And if you would also, in addition to the introduction, tell us about one thing that's happened in the last 2 months to you. All right. So I'll start. My name is Steve Langendorfer. I'm the chair, and I am modeling the new vest for our Bicycle Safety Commission. They're really, Amanda can tell you, they're really cool. All right, who else wants to go next? Bob, you want to go ahead and introduce? And
Bob Reck, retired teacher, and been kind of a tough spring. I don't miss the substitute teaching, I do that, but I've been a track official over 40, and I really miss starting all the high school, junior high meets. I make a little bit of money, but I just need to compete. I really feel sorry for high school athletes this spring, either track or baseball or whatever. So that's a tough one to call. So
sure. Eileen, you want to go next?
Eileen Baker. I'm on the committee. I'm an emergency physician. The only thing that has changed is that I take 2 showers a day instead of 1, because I take one when I get home. Otherwise, everything in my life is absolutely the same.
All right, Tyson.
Tyson Richmond, I represent the Bowling Green Police Division. In the last couple of weeks, I've become a kindergarten and 3rd grade teacher.
Ah, Yeah,
What?
that a lot of that going around. Let's see, Kirby.
I'm Kirby Bucks. I'm the high school representative, and this hasn't happened yet, but on Friday I get my braces off.
Oh, cool. Good for you. Kirby, what grade are you in?
I'm a freshman.
Freshman. Okay, good. All right. How about Reagan?
I'm Reagan. I am the middle school rep and I got my braces off yesterday.
Oh, wow. Must be the week for getting braces off. Cool.
Although it was supposed to be a month and a half ago, but
Yeah.
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 All right, Kristen.
and about a million things happened today. It's been insane. But so I'll tell you about Reagan because she won't, but Amanda knows this, but shameless plug for BG Parks and Recreation. We have a virtual talent show that's posted on our Facebook page right now. The entries were due last Thursday and you can vote through this Friday. And someone that we know is on there singing quite well in my
Nice.
unbiased opinion. So, but go and vote for who you think you should.
So-
We want people to participate. So,
How do we vote? Go on the Parks and Rec site?
yeah, if you go to the Facebook page, there should be something there, a post about the talent show, and it's under the comments. There's seven entries, and you just like the one that you like the best.
All right. And Kristen, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Kristen Otley, I'm the Parks and Recreation Director and the city's liaison to Bicycle Safety Commission. One of them, along with Tyson, who's the law enforcement rep. I won't claim that, or do you want me to? So.
Okay, good. And we have a couple of guests with us that I think, Amanda, I saw you were on earlier. Amanda?
Sorry, I don't meet myself. There's a lot that goes on in this house that you guys don't want to hear.
You don't want to know. All right. And Rachel Phipps is a new city council person.
Yeah, hi guys.
Hi, Rachel. We don't have any video of you.
I know that's because I didn't put myself on video yet because I'm frantically cleaning my office.
Oh, okay. That's fine. That's fine. The nice thing about video is it only shows just a little segment of really messy offices like mine. So,
When I sit down, I will put my video on, I promise.
okay, that's fine. No problem. Kristen, do we have anybody else on?
Nope.
Okay.
I'm here.
Hickley's.
Oh, Neocles is on. Okay, good.
Sorry, let Neil please introduce themselves. We don't have anyone else trying to get in.
Okay.
So it was just your invite. And then again, this is live to anybody who wants to be watching right now.
Okay, great. All right, so our first item of business is the meeting notes, approval of the meeting notes from February of 2020. If anybody can remember that far back, it was all news to me. I will entertain a motion to approve them, or and then we can discuss whether we need to do any edits on them.
So moved.
All right, Bob moved. Have we got a second?
Second.
All right, thanks, Kirby. Any additions, deletions, or corrections on the February meeting notes? Hearing none, all in favor of accepting them as written, say aye.
Hi.
All opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Okay, great. So these are, I will mark them as, since I have them open on my computer, I'll mark them as approved now and save them. Come on. Instead of draft. All right, thank you. So the next item on the agenda. Sorry about being slow here. Here we go. All right. We've done our check-in. We should note item B under what I call, instead of old or continuing business, pandemic business. We have two farewells. Maddie is not on with us, but her term expires. She is the BGSU representative, and we will need to have some replacement for her. And then our middle school representative is Reagan Otley, and Reagan's term is also ending since she's graduating out of middle school, I guess. So,
Just kidding.
so we want to say farewell to you, and Reagan, thank you very much for all of your contributions. How many years, Reagan, how many years have you been the representative?
3.
3 years, okay. So cool. So that's 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
Yeah.
Yeah, great, good for you. And we have, apparently we have some paperwork for a replacement for Reagan, or for a middle school
Yeah,
rep.
Yes, at council Monday night, there were a bunch of appointments that were approved, and I don't have that in front of me. Young man, Alt, but I don't have his first name, and I don't know what grade he's in. Hopefully, he's going into 6th. That's the best way to do it, because then you
Yep.
have somebody for
Then
3
we got him
years.
for 3 years, you're right.
But there's been so many emails this week. I have not. I did get copied on that. I think you probably will be at some point as well.
Okay.
Steve. I don't think I saw a BGSU rep, and that may be hard to fill until the fall.
Yeah.
But I can check on that.
Okay. So the next item was in fact to report on all of the things we thought we were going to do in May, which is Bike Month. And as you see in item C, pretty much all of the ongoing events have been canceled with one exception. Well, 2 exceptions. May Bike Month was not canceled, but most of the events surrounding it were. And the other event is the Ride of Silence will occur tomorrow night, not as a group activity, but there will be a presentation. We've joined with Findlay and Toledo. Will be represented on the presentation. Amanda, do we know the time that they're going to broadcast that?
He's got the link up now, so you can have that saved and ready to go. But he's planning a 6:45 start time
Okay,
for that, with an estimated ride start time of 7, so that it matches the national and global
okay, good.
schedule.
So the Ride of Silence, in case anyone is not familiar, excuse me, is a global event to memorialize bicyclists who have been killed or injured while riding. And in particular, locally, Eric Ramlow is our most recent fatality, I guess. But we will be represented. And Amanda, one more time, what is Keith Webb's group?
We Are Traffic.
We Are Traffic. Okay, yeah.
wearetraffic.org. He's got the link up there. We also posted it in the city's e-news, and there is a Facebook event that he created. I believe it's called Northwest Ohio Ride of Silence.
Okay,
Since we're all joining forces, and that's been added to the city's Facebook page as well.
great.
So you should be able to access that link pretty easily to be able to join in live tomorrow around 6:45.
Okay. So we're encouraging anyone who's interested in participating. The participation would be either as a solo ride, depending on what the weather's like, or maybe in a small family group, and be safe, but ride in silence for your own distance, however you'd like to do that. But the rest of the things that we had planned were pretty much canceled. A few of them have been postponed. We will, item number 3, we will try to name a 2020 bike spokesperson, but we'll do that probably in the fall when we determine how things are shaking out. We also, in the past, have worked at the BG's Farmers Market. I'm not sure that we'll continue to do that, but we do have a number of bike lights and helmets, and we'll have another 5 dozen to give away once we go down to Columbus to pick up the ones that came from the Ohio Academy of Pediatrics. From the grant that we submitted and received. So we'll have to decide whether how things are going later in the summer and any other events where we can safely distribute helmets and bike lights. We'll see what we can do. Item D of that, or that we did receive the what I modeled earlier, the nice bright green safety vests that says Bicycle Safety Commission on the back. We have a dozen of them that anytime that we're doing an event, we will a public event, we'll wear them. And one of these days I'll get them over to Simpson so they can store them. Right now they're stored in my garage. Let's see, Tyson, item E. I don't know if you had a chance to check on any pedestrian or bicycle accidents, Tyson?
I did. I checked and I couldn't find any since February.
Okay. That sounds pretty fairly typical. I guess both accidents and traffic deaths, automobiles and everything are down fairly substantially. People have been, in fact, staying home. So that's sort of one of the good news sides of that. Is there any other old or continuing business or so-called pandemic business that we should include in our discussion at this point?
Steve, I would just mention in relation to the farmer's market,
Yes.
I didn't, yeah, it starts tomorrow, but my understanding is that they're not having the entertainment and the booze and all that. It's just you go in and you buy your stuff and you go.
Right.
I would say we probably would not have that as an opportunity, at least until the fall, and probably not then.
Right. Okay. Yeah, in fact, they were enforcing social distancing fairly strictly last week. I stopped to buy a loaf of bread, and a group of people ahead of me were all kind of huddled up. And so one of the workers came over and said, spread out. Most people at the farmers market were wearing masks at least, but they did start spreading it out. As I was impressed that they were pretty proactive about it, trying to make sure that people understood. Don't forget where they were out in public. So, all right. Going to new business. I think in February, you saw in the minutes, I reported about having attended a TMACOG. TMACOG is Toledo Metropolitan Area Council of Governments, a meeting at the Toledo, the renovated Toledo Library. And what they have done is they have what they call on the move transportation plan, and they had public meetings to do a 2020 update. One of the more significant things about the update was that for the first time ever, they actually had the same number of pedestrian and bicycle related items as they did related to automobiles. The budgets are not the same by any means, but and I think I reported there's an item number 51 that is for a transportation plan for Bowling Green. It is scheduled, it's supposed to be 2.4 million, which is very tentative, and it's scheduled for 2030 to 2035. So it's a long way off before anybody gets there. But related to that, in item 2 under the new business, is that week and a half ago, we had a Zoom teleconference with Lance. And Neocles, can you remind me Lance's last name?
Unmute. Dasher, Lance Dasher.
Dasher, that's right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Lance is the planner for TMACOG for the pedestrian and bicycle transportation part of the plan. Lance hosted us and included Neocles and Rachel and myself, and we had a fairly good discussion. I wanted to give you a little bit of information about what I took away from the meeting, and then I would like to invite, we'll kind of do maybe a little early lobby visitation. I'd like Neocles and Rachel to share a little bit of their insights from this Zoom meeting that we had. I have shared with you by email yesterday 2 sample city bicycle transportation plans that Lance shared with us. They're from Sandusky County and Ottawa County, I believe. They're very fancy and snazzy. Ours is pretty much word bound, the one that we did in 2009, but I shared that as well. Part of the discussion that we had was considering how we're going to go about in kind of a logical fashion to kind of construct the biking infrastructure within Bowling Green. You know, we've got the limited start on Conneaut and Fairview, and what we need to, and we've made the list of priorities that we did a year ago for streets that we think should get sharrows, and then other streets that might be more amenable to bicycle lanes. And part of the discussion that we had with Lance and among Neocles and Rachel and I was that what they're looking for from City Council is to give is for the Bicycle Safety Commission to provide some leadership to City Council and to the City of Bowling Green about what kinds of priorities we want to do. How are we going to kind of create an ongoing long-term plan for how are we going to approach an integrated set of bicycle routes and lanes and places that have sharrows on them in the city. Also, as part of that discussion, I was reminded that we did add a bike transportation plan to the city's transportation plan, but we did that way back in 2009. And so that's 11 years, probably needs an update. And my thought was that what we need to do is maybe in a small subgroup to look at the sample city bike plans that Lance shared and compare them with what we did 11 years ago. See if there's something that we should be updating in this 2009 plan. I'm wondering with members of the commission, some thoughts about that, those ideas. Bob or Eileen or Kirby, Tyson?
I don't think a lot has changed in terms of what we need. So as long as when they dig up something, they make it better than it was bicycling wise, I'm fine with it.
Okay.
Yeah, if I were to suggest one thing, I'd say bike lanes on Pearl would be a good addition, but that's just my personal preferences.
Okay. And I don't believe that we have Pearl down as one of the bicycle lane roads, partly because it's not particularly wide. I do think it's one of the ones that we had suggested for Sharrows.
Yeah.
But partially because I appreciate that, when I ride on Pearl, traffic goes, especially after you get beyond Maple, traffic starts going 35, and it can be fairly heavy. I think we could relook at our priorities if we want. I think that's a good idea, Kirby. Anybody else with thoughts about updating the bike transportation plan without having necessarily studied it in very great detail?
Does the plan have any call for any one-way bicycle lanes?
No.
Is that something anybody's given thought to?
Well, the problem with one-way bike lanes is that what we're trying to do is educate the cyclists that they should be riding with traffic. And so ideally what you want, unless you've got a one-way street, which we don't have many of in BG, ideally you want a bike lane on each side so that people are continuing to go with traffic.
Steve, the other part of that study that they did was that if you make it wider, people go faster. So if you
Right.
make it a one way, then people go faster, and that's even more dangerous for the cyclists since we don't have a separated, cordon off actual bike lane. It's just a piece of paint rather than
Right.
your own piece of asphalt.
Okay. Bob, any thoughts, or Tyson?
Well, I think, we go out and bike, like Pearl's a good east and west route right there. And
Right.
I bike all the streets right there. I know, I go out to bike on the trail sometimes. I go Maple all the way from high school out there, and I've been biking so many years. I stay in got my rear view mirror, and I'm not concerned about traffic. I hope that the other person's doing what they're supposed to do. And really, I think people, they're aware now that you have to give 3 feet to move on the side right there. So I've been, all my last couple of years biking, people have been pretty aware of that right there. So I feel good about that. But still, I think the novice biker is a little concerned about traffic, and it just,
Right.
After done it for many years, I get used to it. But still, we're not going to win in a situation. A biker in a car, we're going to get hit. We're not going to win.
Right.
the battle. So I guess, but
Yeah, I mean, my experience is similar to Bob's in that if you ride out in the right wheel automobile tire lane, cars 99.5% of the time, cars easily give you the 3 feet, probably more than that, to the point where if they're even close to 3 feet, I get annoyed now because most of them change lanes.
Yeah, I was noticing that when I ride by myself, there cars passing me are much more likely to just skimp on the distance. But when I'm riding like side by side with my sister, and they have to go into the other lane, they give
Right.
more distance. And it's like, if you make sure that they have to go into the other lane, then they will give 3 feet. But
Right.
yeah.
Well, and part of it's perception, I know. And that's why Yay Bikes has tried to train us to have everybody ride out into the lane and not stay to the far right, so that it's obvious to the motorist that they can't stay in their lane and still get around the bike. Other than the ones that are in a hurry and think they can get around you really quick before the oncoming car comes. Those are, it's an ongoing, it'll continue to be an ongoing battle, I think. So you'll notice on
Steve,
item 2D, one of the things that came up in our Zoom conference meeting, and that Rachel Phipps raised, and I'll invite her to talk to us a little bit more about thoughts that she had. And I think she and Neocles had talked with Lance as well about the notion about temporary bike lanes, particularly given the fact that we were, people were sheltering in place and there was substantially reduced traffic. Unfortunately, I think that's reversed itself, at least when I was down on Main Street an hour and a half ago. It was as busy as I recall it being before the sheltering in. But Rachel, could I ask you to give us a little bit of insight about the idea of temporary bike lanes?
Yeah, sure. I'll give you my pitch. I love this idea. I've seen a ton more riders in my neighborhood in the past couple of weeks and months, and I think the city should really be thinking of creative ways to encourage, citizens to get out, enjoy the city, our parks, downtown this summer. So I brought the idea to Steve, hoping that he would float it to you guys and see what you thought. I don't have any, grand vision of specific streets or how best to get this done, but I just think it would be a fun thing for our community this summer to put some temporary bike lanes in for a few weeks, a month. I remember the Court Street Connects project, and I don't remember how long those bike lanes were on Court Street. But something along that, in that vein. Lance gave us a website on tactical urbanism, right? So the idea of, I'm sure you guys have something in mind right now, but hay bales, paint, just really simple, low-cost ways to create some temporary lanes. And then the city can definitely collect some data, right? And see how much they're used and get some feedback. And there are streets coming up to be repaved in the near future, Court being one of them. And you all recommended a bike lane treatment there, I believe.
Yes, we did. Yeah.
So, I mean, I just would like to hear what y'all think.
Feedback from anybody, please.
just to clarify for Court Street Connects, it was the week leading up to that Saturday event, I believe. So it was Monday through Friday, and then for the Saturday event, at which time the whole street was shut down.
Sure.
And
I
then,
think, actually, Kristen, I think it
at the end
was
of the
2
event,
weeks.
correct?
I think it was a 2-week period that they asked people not to park on the street so they could set up the lane, or, the bike lane. Unfortunately, they only did it on one side. And so it was a 2-way bike lane, which is not preferable. But, well, what if anybody's in favor of something like an experiment like this, any suggestions about streets? We're already, they're in the process of paving Clay, which is just that 2-block street near the city building. They did Manville last year, and they're going to put arrows on that, and as on part of Thurston. Any other streets?
I
Go ahead.
would say Worcester definitely has the space for something just temporary.
Yeah, yeah.
That's White Street.
So East or West Worcester or both?
I mostly only bike on West Worcester,
On
but
West?
East Worcester also has space.
Yeah. I think my impression, just I probably bike on both of them about the same, but my impression is that traffic's not quite as heavy on the West Worcester from Church Street down to Haskins. The issue with West Worcester is that as soon as you get to Haskins, then the West Worcester goes back down to literally a 25-foot wide 2-lane road, rather than the essentially 4-lane road that it is for those few blocks from Church to Haskins. But that would be one place.
And I'll just note that according to the city's paving schedule, Westminster is being paved in 2021, and they are going to consider a bike lane from Maine to Winter Garden,
Oh, good.
Wow.
according to their spreadsheet. So
Okay.
that could be a great place to put a temporary lane for a few weeks this summer.
Yeah. I wonder how they're going to do the bike lanes after west of Haskins, though. That's going to be because that's going to be expensive. The first part of it seems to me to be a no-brainer, but that's 2021, Amanda?
It's Rachel, and yes,
Oh, it was Rachel, sorry.
that's okay. No, I should turn on my video. Yeah, 2021.
Okay. And South Main is also supposed to be getting
Yeah.
paved. Is that this year or is it 2021?
That's 2024.
Oh, I thought it was sooner than that. Okay.
No, no. But that multi-use path and all of that is 2024.
I'm not familiar with the multi-use path.
And I don't know exactly. I just know it's a big project. Kristen, do you know anything? Amanda, Neocles? I'm sorry, I can't really tell you more than there's a big South Main project in 2024. There's a multi-use path involved. That's all I know.
Yeah, and that's tied to funding too that they have for that. So, I mean, as long as nothing crazy happens with all of this, it's a pretty much,
Yeah.
that's been in the works for a while now with the engineers and public works department.
I thought that was, I really thought it sounded to me like it was sooner than 2024, but I didn't realize. And is that all the way on South Main, or is that just south of Napoleon?
I'm not clear on how far it goes. I mean, I could check and maybe shoot you guys an email with engineers when I can touch base with them. But that's a pretty massive project. And that'll be a multi-use path. And it's my understanding that it'll be separate from the road. So there'll be some type of barrier.
Oh, good.
whether
Okay.
it's, vegetation or whatever. I'm not 100% clear, and I'm not even sure those final details have been completely worked out, but yeah, that's a pretty big project. I think we've brought it up at a meeting or two in the past couple of years. So.
Good. I know Brian Kraft had mentioned it at a one of our public meetings or something. But I didn't have any more information about it. But anyway, that would be, I do think, as Rachel suggested, it makes sense. If we know there's paving projects coming up, to be able to do a little bit of kind of proactive evaluation. That's one of the probably the weakest of our keys that we have from safe routes to schools and from Yay Bikes. Evaluation is one of the weaker ones. We don't do enough of that. Let's see. Oh, we also actually had an earlier meeting with John Zanfordino and Neocles and I. We had also posed this was, of course, before the pandemic and everything shut down, but we had proposed doing a development ride like Yay Bikes had done with us. But we have 5 or 6 people trained doing a development ride with all of the members of City Council to give them an experience about what the Yay Bikes principles are, but also to explore some of the roads in town, particularly if it was related to some infrastructure suggestions. I'm not sure we can do that until things open up further along, but that's one of the, I'm not sure that, it's item 4C in the agenda. Invite and schedule a City Council slow roll ride to actually a development ride to give them an experience with different parts, different streets in town to illustrate how difficult or how easy, depending on the perspective, I guess. We probably do need to make some connection with Brian Kraft, and remind me again the city engineer. I had it written and I don't see it in front of me. The new city engineer is it Dave?
It's Brad Holman.
Oh, Brad. Yes. Sorry. I'm wondering if at our next meeting, we could invite both of them to have some discussion with us about their perceptions of these same issues, about doing a temporary bike lanes as well as the interconnected infrastructure that we have. Any thoughts from anybody?
Steve, I know that was part of your plan at the March meeting.
February is our last meeting.
Okay. So I know that there was definitely some momentum to do that. And just a reminder, some of the maps that are appearing on the Bike Safety Commission page, what administration attempted to do with Public Works was to merge the document that was created by Bike Safety when you all scored and rated streets that were either geared up better for bike lanes or geared up better for sharrows because of different restrictions, and you all weighted them and had a whole criteria. So they took that recommendation that was made and they merged it with the paving schedule to come up with the map that is currently on the Bike Safety page. And was part of the discussion that was going to take place at that meeting, that was going to talk about future paving, future bike lanes, future sharrows and the like. and the interconnectivity. So I think it'd be really important for everybody if we can get that discussion back on the agenda, because I think that would help clear up some confusion. What I would really hate to see as a recommendation for a temporary whatever on a road that's not even in line with any of
Sure.
that. I mean, that would make it look like none of us know what we're doing at that
Yeah.
point. So that would really be my hope, is that we can get that presentation back on the books, whether, I think it was going to be Joe, but I know Brian Kraft's open to it because I've talked to him just in some sidebar conversations. I think that'd be good for everybody, though. Get everybody kind of on the same page.
Okay. What's your thought maybe that we should have a separate meeting or just have it the focus of our next month's meeting?
I know you were just going to do it at a bike safety meeting so that it was a public meeting and all the bike safety commission members were there and any members of the public who chose to listen in. So,
Okay.
and I know we normally have John Zanfordino on these, and now it looks like Neocles and Rachel joining us. So that's a good audience and a good
Sure.
discussion.
Okay. I think that's for our future, our next meeting, that can be kind of our focus. If you see in the bottom of your screen, there's a little voice bubble that says chat. If you click on that, Neocles has given us a link to the Tactical Urbanism Guide that Rachel mentioned. And that's would be a good read. I think the city council is considering ideas like that about how do we make Bowling Green more livable in that several blocks west of the university and over to the railroad, I think, is one of the areas that they've looked at new architecture and things, but tactical urbanism also includes the things like the active transportation plan and the complete streets. So if you want to make sure you get that that link copied, you can look at it at another time. I'd encourage you to do that. All right. Are there any other? I think at this point we haven't continued to work on the bicycle friendly businesses. In fact, I'm not sure if Rachel and Neocles know about it, but there are several different kinds of programs around the country where businesses in a city can be identified as bicycle friendly, so that they have a bicycle rack outside, and usually there's a sign they can post in their window to identify to cyclists that there is some advantage to coming into that business. Either they get 10 or 15% off, or there's a free item or something else. They also make their bathrooms available to cyclists, things like that. We've been talking about that for a while, but we haven't pursued anything further about that. But I think maybe with some additional time here, we can consider that, because I think it helps. It ties in not only the businesses around the city, but also cycling together, so that there's a more of a unified feel. It might fit into this whole tactical urbanism philosophy. I will open, is there anything else in any of the items under new business that we need to address at this point?
Steve, I just want to go back to, I printed out, because I knew I wasn't going to be in my office. I'm here at the city building, but I printed out your attachment of our recommendations to the Transportation and Safety Committee. And so to
Right.
Kirby's point about Pearl, we do have that as recommended for the Sharrow treatment under the east-west city streets.
Okay, thank
So
you.
it is on
I
the
thought that was probably the
recommendation.
case because it isn't, it's only 25 feet wide, I believe. So that makes it difficult to add a bicycle lane.
Right.
I don't disagree with Kirby though, that it certainly would. I mean, it's a nice straight street. It does lend itself to picking up speed on their in a car, and that would be a nice corridor there. If there's well, again, that would be something to talk with Brian and Brad about to see what the plans for that is. That seems to have been fairly recently paved. I don't know that it's probably needing paving anytime soon, but we could ask about that. Anything else? Thanks, Kristen. We'll open it up to lobby visitation. Anything else, Neocles or Rachel or Amanda, that you'd like to?
I have something I'd like to bring up with the group.
Sure.
So my sense of looking at all the, and I know a number of you, I don't know all of you, but I know a lot of you, and I know Steve, and you're all I would say falling under the category of avid bicyclists and probably more or less fearless bicyclists. Is that fair to say?
Well, Bob and I would fall in that category. I don't know about other people.
And you're still alive, to your credit.
Hey,
So the reason I raise that is because according to Lance, you're actually in the minority. And there's a lot of people out there that would ride more, would like to ride, but are very uncomfortable on streets where there are trucks, where there's cars going at high speed. And so we kind of need you to stretch your imaginations a little bit and think about those folks that would ride. And I hear from them as city council person, I hear from them, and they will tell me, I only ride on the sidewalks. I don't want to ride in the streets. And even if I give them all the arguments that I've learned from Steve, because I used to ride on the sidewalks too, they're not convinced. And that's where, this idea that we really need to move to bicycle lanes on some streets in not a piecemeal fashion, but in a continuous fashion. So you can get from here to there by a bike lane, even if it's a little bit out of the way in some places where we would have difficulty putting the bike lanes in. This is what I'd like to really get some help from you folks and to think about it. And it might be a stretch for you because you don't see a problem with going straight through four corners on your bike, but a lot of people do.
Yeah, I heard, I talked to a couple of my classmates about this because I know that they, almost all of my classmates ride on the sidewalk and only ride on the street if it's the sidewalk's really bumpy or something like that. And I told them all the reasons why they should do it. And they just tell me back, I would if I felt more safe in the streets. And they've never been hit by a car backing out of a driveway, but there are more cars on the streets. So they just ride on the sidewalk.
Yeah. This is helpful. Tyson, at our, I think in our February meeting, we had two bicycle incidents that you reported. And one of the things we asked you about is what's the likelihood that these bicycle incidents are going to happen in the street versus on the sidewalk? And could you share your experience?
Yeah, if you look at bike crashes, I would say at least 90% of them are caused because the bicyclist is on the sidewalk. It's not always the bicyclist's fault because there's a city ordinance for motor vehicles that you have to anytime you're approaching a sidewalk, you have to stop at that sidewalk, which most cars don't do that. But had the bicyclist been on the road and not the sidewalk, the crash would have been avoided. So if you look at just that statistic, it is safer to ride on the road than on the sidewalk. But I understand that it's hard to convince bicyclists who aren't comfortable with the traffic. They're not really going to believe that.
Right. And, you know, in my experience is, I rarely will go on the sidewalk, but every time that I pass a car with somebody with their phone propped up on their steering wheel while they're either texting or checking their map or something, it reminds me, oh, I'd like to stay as far away from that person as possible. The distracted driving, I think, is becoming a real issue that even the best of cyclists worry about, because as Bob said, commented before, the bicycle car collision, the bicyclist is never going to win. In canoeing, we call it the principle of gross tonnage. The big ship wins. In this case, the larger vehicle, which is always the automobile, regardless of how big the car is, it's always going to be outweigh that. So I certainly take Neocles's plea seriously. I think it's something that we collectively, meaning the Bicycle Safety Commission, but also with Transportation and Safety Commission and the public utility, and the city engineer and stuff, I think need to collectively wrestle with how do we do this in an economical fashion. I do think that we have 16 different bike routes that have been identified for a number of years. And I do think that it's probably time for us to say, you know, are all 16 of these routes actually feasible? And how do we make them more friendly for people? Most people with whom I speak have no idea about the bike routes that we have around town, despite the fact that I don't know how many thousands of bicycle maps we've given away, at least during the time when I've been on the commission. Every time we run off 500 of them, they last just a year or two, and somebody's getting them, but we're not really identifying these routes very clearly. So it seems to me that working on some kind of an audit of our streets to go along with the recommendations we already made for sharrows or bike lanes, particularly in you know, asking the question, how do we make novice riders comfortable? And I think my experience in Columbus, they have a number of bicycle lanes everywhere. The ones that are most comfortable to all cyclists are ones that are literally physically separated. So the multi-use lanes that apparently we're talking about on South Main would be one example of that. Where in fact there's a physical barrier between the cars and the cyclists. Those, of course, are obviously the safest and also the most expensive at the same time.
Even the sharrows they just like, even though they like act as mostly a reminder that, yeah, bikes, you can be in the streets. But I've seen, like, in the time that they've been on like Conneaut in particular, I've seen more bicyclists going down Conneaut more confidently and more of them. And like even just little things like the Sharrows can increase how many cyclists we have on the streets. It doesn't have to be separated bike lanes.
Right. And I think that was our thinking when we made the recommendation about Sharrows as well as bike lanes. And it sounds like we're at the point now where we need to consider some kind of proactive ideas about how we're going to accomplish that. I think frankly, I was kind of surprised when, you know, we did the ranking. Everybody did a good job of saying, okay, here's how we do it. We summarized all the ranks. I frankly was sort of surprised how well it was received by City Council and by the Transportation and Safety Commission. And it's, I'm reminded of the cliche of be careful what you wish for, because now I think the next step is what I'm hearing from both Rachel and Neocles is now we've got to put our actions where our mouth is or where our report is and come up with some ideas about how to actually create this route that it would seem logical to a novice rider. You know, when Bob said he's comfortable riding every place around town, you know, I think the same thing. Plus, as an experienced rider in town, I know which streets to go on if I'm worried about the traffic. I know the parallel streets. Bowling Green's set up fairly nicely with east-west, north-south. So there's always a parallel street that's a little less traveled. But I think, again, the novice riders don't know that. And we need to have a more explicit set of, infrastructure, whether it's Sharrows and or bike lanes to help people do that.
Steve, could I just jump in? I'm sorry. Okay, this is Rachel again.
Hi, Rachel.
And Amanda should totally correct me if I'm wrong. But I think that Amanda's suggestion to have Brian walk the group through just how infrastructure that the Bike Safety Commission recommended will actually be implemented in town will be super helpful, because Lori Treader, city administrator, reported to council in early March. I guess I'm going to use the word policy. I don't know if it's a true, yes, we'll use the word policy, just how the city will implement the Bike Safety Commission's regulation or suggestions. And so I'm looking at, a really great spreadsheet that overlays the city's upcoming paving projects with the treatments recommended by this Bike Safety Commission, as well as a map. I think these are both on the website, but I assume, Amanda, your suggestion is Brian walking the group through what Lori walked council through. Is that correct?
Yeah, and actually, I think that it was Joe Fawcett that was on the agenda for that meeting.
Oh, okay.
In March. He's actually the one that did the work on that.
Okay.
And kind of deserves some of the praise for it, because he just took the work that Bike Safety Commission had done and the work that Public Works had done with the paving schedule and the like, and recognized that without those two efforts being merged together, we weren't going to have legitimate progress or progress that made any type of sense. So he's really the one that kind of deserves the praise for it, and was going to kind of walk everybody through it at that meeting. So I that's why I was kind of urging Steve.
Yeah.
See
Sure.
if we get him back on the agenda for that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that Brian Crafter or the engineer could be looped in as well if anybody thought that was beneficial, if Joe needed the assist, but.
And so, Steve, I think that the Lori and Joe's presentation laid out how the city is going to address the Bike Safety Commission's recommendations. But
Right.
An open question is how often the Bike Safety Commission revisits their recommendations. I think that's the piece that is still kind of up in the air. So you could look at your list, and I mean, if something needed to change, I'm sure, you know, if you want to revisit it annually, et cetera. That was an open question. And then Lori also tasked council with deciding how council would, when administration made a recommendation for a certain treatment, how council would approve that, I guess, if that will be the transportation committee or council of the whole. So I think Joe will be, I second Amanda's call to get Joe back on your schedule.
Okay. So I'm certainly prepared to do that. I will issue an invitation and see if they're available. Our next meeting is scheduled for June 16th. We'll take it under advisement about whether we're going to do maybe a blended meeting or whether we'll do another Zoom meeting. We'll see how that works out, depending on how things are going at that point, if that's all right with everyone. Is there anything else for the good of the order? Otherwise, we've passed our hour point. Is there anybody else that needs to, anything else we need to discuss before we adjourn? Am I talking to myself? I guess. Oh, no. Okay.
Nope, I think we're good.
Okay. Well, with that, then let's see. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. My goodness.
All right. We have a motion and we are so adjourned.
Thanks.
Okay.
All right,
You please
everybody be
Say
safe.
hi to Vasiliki for
Healthy.
me.
I will.
Thanks.
Thanks, Eileen.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
All right.
Bye.